Lindsey Graham is calling for a preemptive strike on Iran, saying we should target their oil fields because they're funding this terrorism. A U.S. Navy carrier strike group is now in place to stop anyone from making the Israel-Hamas war any worse than it already is. China is reportedly trying to drag the United States and Western powers into a multi-pronged battlefield on 4 different fronts, and thus they may move to take Taiwan. Ladies and gentlemen, World War III. Right now, with the Eastern European front and Russia's invasion, everyone seems to have an interest in escalating this conflict, and all at once, it could happen. The BRICS nations, Iran, many of these other countries that oppose Western influence see this as an opportunity to split the U.S.'s military power, NATO especially, and then take what they want. It's kind of like you got the police responding to a bank robbery, and so other criminals decide to go rob liquor stores. It's like a riot breaks out, and then what do we see? Mass looting. But this on the international scale and risking, I guess, nuclear annihilation. Vladimir Putin has made it very clear. He will use nuclear weapons. There are calls now from inside Israel to flatten Gaza using whatever means they have. And if that happens, I would not be surprised to see international conflict escalate. Now, I suppose, as we're learning about the strike group entering the Mediterranean, well, what does that mean? And does that escalate? But understand, each and every one of these stories are grains of sand making up a heap, as the saying goes. Marine unit leaves Kuwait exercise early because of emerging events. And what could that mean? We'll go through this. We'll go through all of it. An Israeli lawmaker is urging her government to use everything in its arsenal, including doomsday weapons, against Hamas. And at the same time, we now have reports taking off. Hamas has called for a global day of jihad tomorrow. NYPD are being deployed in full. I believe they're calling in all NYPD in uniform due to the risk against Jewish population and protests and violence, which I think is strongly possible. I think it's interesting, however, the New York Post said that they're calling for protests. Protests. Is that what jihad means? Sure, you could technically argue that. But I don't think when you have people celebrating the death of civilians in New York City, they're planning on just protesting. But this is it. Now, before I get into the minutia of what constitutes a potential risk of World War III, I want to bring up this story from Timcast.com. Last night, on Timcast IRL's Uncensored show, go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member if you want to listen in. One of our viewers and members asked us if China was playing a role in what happened. And I immediately pulled up this article. China attempting to draw U.S. into 4 separate wars, one with terrorist group. Expert claims CCP may have played a role in the recent Hamas attack against Israel, noting that China formed a strategic alliance with Palestine months before the assault. Timcast.com reports, the world is still reeling from the grotesque images and videos coming from Israel, where members of the Islamist militant group Hamas recently unleashed an attack that resulted in the deaths of more than 900 Israelis. I believe it's way higher than that right now. And look, man, there's more evidence coming out about kids being mutilated and killed. I say evidence, not proof. There's a difference. Proof is overt and undeniable. Evidence is there are photos of babies that have emerged on social media. And so verification of the photos where they come from, that would be proof. But for now, I think considering we know what Hamas's intentions are and what they said they are willing to do with civilians, look, man, I mean, this is reality. This is war. There remains widespread speculation as to whether other organizations or governments played a role in the facilitation of the operation. However, one possibility under consideration is that the Hamas attack is part of a widespread effort by China to catastrophically weaken the United States by drawing America into multiple simultaneous conflicts. CCP officials are planning a major war against the U.S., according to investigative reporter and East Asia expert Joshua Phillip, as he stated in a recent video. The CCP is planning to draw the U.S. into 4 separate conflicts, and they believe at least one of these needs to be a terror organization. It is possible that Hamas could be that group. The most important piece connecting China to Hamas, Phillip says, is that in June of this year, CCP leader Xi Jinping personally met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and announced the establishment of a China-Palestine strategic partnership. China hosted the meeting as part of its push to expand its influence in the Middle East. The visit, during which she said China and Palestinians were good friends, good partners, was Abbas's fifth to China. More importantly, we have this, and I hope you are prepared. War may be coming. I mean, war's here, okay? But I mean, war may be coming to the United States. There are fears that our southern border is porous. Hamas extremists and sleeper cells may already be here. And tomorrow, former leader of Hamas has called for jihad globally. So I hope you are paying attention. I hope you are, you be a little bit paranoid. You know, we had a caller call in and ask, you know, should I leave my neighborhood? I mean, because they lived in a Jewish neighborhood. And I'm like, you know, they try to insult you for being paranoid. Well, you don't even have to say, you can say concerned. You don't need to say paranoid. I think you can be reasonable. And the question is, if you're living in an area that you feel may be a target, the question is, what's it worth to you? Right? The way I see it is, if you could buy a lottery ticket right now, and if you were to get the numbers right, you would be maimed and beaten. Why would you buy the lottery ticket, right? But you're like, yeah, but the chance of anything happening are slim. Sure, but why would you buy it? I mean, you people win the lottery. Well, the question is this. Is it a burden on you to spend a few days with some family members in a suburb, or, you know, to go on vacation and, you know, take a nice little October pumpkin patch apple picking vacation or something, right? Is that so devastating? So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, considering the threats and the risks, you don't want to be paranoid. But is it a big deal if you're like, hey, this weekend we're going to go apple picking or something, and then you spend a weekend away and see how things play out? The likelihood is your area will be fine. Nothing will happen. But there are some of you, in the event something does happen, I don't think it'll be every neighborhood everywhere. But the people who do take their security seriously, you know, they're going to be okay. Because either you spend a weekend with the kids or you narrowly avoided a serious attack. I want to show you this video. ALX tweets, I had to check if this was real. It is. Lindsey Graham calling for World War III explicitly. Oh, of course, as per usual, audio is incorrectly assigned.
I would do is I would bomb Iran's oil infrastructure. The money financing terrorism comes from Iran. It's time for this terrorist state to pay a price for financing and supporting all this chaos. Yes, if you're the Iranians, if it were up to me, this war escalates, I'm coming after you.
I think this is what I'm trying to clarify here, because I'm wondering if
us and Israel,
the United States and
Israel.
I
want to be crystal clear.
The United. Let me just understand you. Just to be clear, you're saying that you would want the United States and Israel to bomb Iran, even in the absence of direct evidence of their involvement in this attack.
Yeah. So if there's an escalation, Abby, if there's people's throats being cut on television as Israel goes into Gaza and they're threatening to kill the hostages, if Hezbollah is unleashed on Israel in the north, it will be because Iran is supporting that. If you don't get the connection between Iran and this terrorist activity by Hamas and Hezbollah, you're missing a lot. This is a terrorist state that has American blood on its hands. It is now time to dismantle the financing system of terrorism if this war escalates. Yes, I would do a joint military operation. I tell the Iranians today, if the war escalates, you will pay a price. You will be out of the oil business.
Look at this. Look at the Chiron. Lindsey Graham, bomb Iran even if no direct evidence of role in the attack.
I want to be crystal clear on that. And if we don't do that, what do you expect to happen in the future? Do you expect Israel to forgive and forget? Biden didn't mention one word about Iran today, and I want to support the president. I'm supporting the Saudi-Israel peace deal. Israel made peace with several Arab countries through the Abraham Accords. I want to help the Palestinians we can do business with as part of a Saudi-Israel peace deal. But I'm tired of letting Iran, I think they did this to stop the Saudi-Arab peace negotiations, the Iranians. I don't want to reward them. I want to punish them.
So, Senator, can I ask you now about what's happening here in the United States? Republicans on Capitol Hill, your colleagues, especially in the House, are debating whether or not to fund Israel and Ukraine. Some of them don't want to fund Ukraine at all and only want to fund Israel. But my question to you is, do you think the U.S. risks being stretched too thin with these two incredibly significant conflicts happening at the same time, requiring quite a lot of American resources?
Yeah, no, not really. You know, my dad fought in Japan, and I had an uncle fought in Germany. America fought the Germans and the Japanese at the same time. Not one American.
And there it is. And there he says it. And you get what these people want. We're not stretched too thin. My dad fought in Japan. What did he say? Who else fought in Germany? Let's play
your colleagues, especially in the House, are debating whether or not two incredibly significant conflicts happening at the same time, requiring quite a lot of American resources.
Yeah, no, not really. You know, my dad fought in Japan, and I had an uncle fought in Germany. America.
That's right. His dad fought in Japan. His uncle fought in Germany. He's talking about World War II, baby. He is saying that we can start World War III. Lindsey Graham has called for the bombing of Iran. It's amazing. It is terrifying. It is terrifying where we are currently at. Axios reports 25 Americans killed in Israel, others held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. This is my fear. Man, we're about to live through interesting times, my friends. It is horrifying what has happened in Israel, no question. It is horrifying to the United States that 25 Americans were killed, and it is deeply troubling and terrifying that there are Americans being held hostage. Yeah, I don't see how this gets resolved peacefully. China may get what they want. Lindsey Graham doesn't seem to care. Lindsey Graham says, no, we can do it. I despise Lindsey Graham. I think he is an evil man. He's not going to be the one fighting this. But you know what? It's not so much about, is the United States stretched too thin? It's about our recruiting numbers. Nobody wants to join a woke military. And I'll add this. The military supporting this woke ideology, the people who write the books on this stuff hate Israel and are supporting the terrorists. They're supporting the terror attacks on civilians. So why would I trust that if, somebody would believe joining the military would be for the right reason? It's getting crazy out there now. Let me see. I think I might have, where's that story? I don't know. I can tell you this, though. Damascus International Airport and Aleppo Airport in western Syria were both targeted today by the Israeli Air Force, resulting in such serious damage that the airports are currently closed to any and all flights, including an aircraft from the Iranian government, reportedly carrying the foreign minister, Hossein Amir Abdollahian. Abdollahian. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pronounce it as best I can. Yeah, this is from OSINT Defender on Twitter. Don't know if it's confirmed or not, but it looks like we are rapidly heading towards a war with Iran. As of this morning, 10 a.m., NYPD investigating several violent incidents possibly motivated by the war in Israel. Police are being deployed. Tomorrow is going to be wild. I hope you're paying attention. And look, I'm not saying there's a guarantee of any attacks on anybody, but there's going to be protests. The police are going to be deployed. It'll be something. But I'm not saying there's going to be violence. I don't know. Brooklyn, New York. Police are investigating multiple violent incidents that may have been motivated by the war between Israel and Hamas. Wednesday night, 2 Jewish men approached 2 other men holding Palestinian flags, grabbed one of the flags, hit one man over the head with it, and then ran away. The incident occurred in Brooklyn at Flushing Avenue and Classen. No arrests have been made. I do find it funny, though. When you get all these videos of young black men mercilessly beating Jewish people, the media is mum. It's not a big issue for them. It doesn't make its way to the pundits on prime time. But now it will. Just before 8 p.m. Wednesday, 2 16-year-olds allegedly fired off gel pellet guns outside Congregation B'nai Yosef on Ocean Parkway in Gravesend, the Flushing Shamrim, a Jewish watchdog group. The Jewish watchdog group responded to this scene first. 2 teens were taken into custody. Around midnight Wednesday night, a Middle Eastern 18-year-old was allegedly assaulted by one of 3 men waving Israeli flags who police say jumped out of their cars, asked if the man was Palestinian, and then proceeded to kick and punch him. The incident occurred on 86th Street in Bay Ridge and is being investigated as a hate crime. Conflict is here for us. Strike group is now in the Mediterranean. The Navy's most advanced aircraft carrier and its strike group arrived in the eastern Mediterranean Sea on Tuesday, where it's been positioned to deter anyone from capitalizing on the chaos of the Israel-Hamas war. Interesting. Or meaning the U.S. is defending Israel. U.S. Central Command said the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group was among several forces deployed to the area in order to deter any actor seeking to escalate the situation or widen this war. The forces include the actual aircraft carrier and support aircraft, the Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser USS Normandy, and the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers USS Thomas Hudner, USS Ramage, USS Carney, and USS Roosevelt. The arrival of these highly capable forces to the region is a strong signal of deterrence should any actor hostile to Israel consider trying to take advantage of the situation. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said on Sunday the USS Gerald Ford Strike Group would be sent to the region. The move came during the supercarrier's first full deployment. What happens if Americans are killed? What happens if American hostages are killed? At least 17 Americans are missing, the White House said on Wednesday. The first shipments of military aid arrived in Israel on Tuesday. The U.S. is also moving its Ford carrier strike group. We know this. There you go. I've directed my team to share intelligence and deploy additional experts from across the U.S. government to consult with and advise Israeli counterparts on hostage recovery efforts. Because as president, I have no higher priority than the safety of Americans being held hostage around the world. The brutality of Hamas's bloodthirstiness brings to mind the worst rampages of ISIS. This is terrorism, Biden said in televised remark on Tuesday. Hamas militants invaded Israeli villages, this we know, and it's being laid out in front of you, man. I don't know what else we can say. Israel, from express.co.uk, Israel must destroy Hamas fast, or this thing becomes World War III. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. It's a world war. It's rapidly becoming World War III. I mean, this is it. The U.S. pulled on multiple fronts. China potentially involved, according to some experts. We don't know for sure. The threat against Taiwan. The U.S. is setting up naval forces in Australia. We are looking at multiple fronts, a world war. And then what happens? South America is going to get roped into it. Elements of Africa get roped into it. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. World War III. And how does it end? I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I think it's naive to say that it just ends with nuclear, ICBMs launching across the sky. I don't think so. What we're looking at is China wants Taiwan in the South China Sea. NATO and Russia are fighting over Ukraine and access to the Black Sea. And of course, you have Israel and Palestine. And a lot of this stems back to World War II. The charters that tried to draw the lines in Israel, the attempts from international forces, and the West siding with Israel, and many Arabic nations siding with Palestine, with Gaza. It's a large component is religious, for sure. But I think for many, it's just going to be strategic. With the war breaking out in Eastern Europe, this sets the stage. The U.S. and the West are now occupied. They're not going to be able to handle a multi-front war. What happens then is everyone sees it as their opportunity. When Alex Jones got suspended on YouTube first, he got banned by every platform instantly. They saw this as their opportunity. This was their chance. They could pile on and say, look, everybody did it. As war breaks out, what better time for China? They want Taiwan. You think they're going to stop and say, no, we're going to wait until the U.S. resolves these wars. Then, no, they go now. And then what? The U.S. cannot maintain war in Southeast Asia, in the South China Sea, in this area. It is mainland China. They have this access. Taiwan falls. The Biden administration has been working on the CHIPS Act specifically because of this. We need to build silicon chips here in the United States, bring back manufacturing because we're about to lose it. The bigger fear, I suppose, is that they're going to bring your sons and daughters and those who've enlisted. And if it does go World War III, I would not be surprised if we see full-scale conscription or something to that effect, or attacks on U.S. soil. the southern border is open and we're at risk. I don't know what this means for you. What I can say is, prices are going to go up. Life will become substantially worse for everybody. There will be millions more refugees, and our southern border is wide open. And this is where we're headed. We've not seen World War on the scale of mass destruction that we have in our capabilities. We didn't. With World War II, we dropped the first nukes. It was the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb. They were big, but they're nothing compared to what we have today. Man, the United States dropped these bombs in kind of a shock and awe on Japan. They wanted the world to know what we could do to you, and Japan surrenders. Holy crap. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We all know the capabilities of nuclear weapons. Who's going to be willing to drop the bomb first, and which one? You could get a multiple independently targeted reentry vehicle, a MIRV, fired into the air, built in the 80s, mind you, 12 warheads, launch into the stratosphere, and pepper the eastern seaboard of the United States. How many untold dead? You'll have millions dead. And it's crazy to think. And for what reason? Why is this happening? This is a scary thought, man. I don't see an off-ramp for any of this. So I hope you're all ready and paying attention. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.